Ríordáin, you have 8 minutes.
Gura Margaret, again, very welcome, Minister, to the Chamber. We've had a number of discussions on Brexit in this Chamber, and I have to say that I have to commend the Government's action before the referendum in doing as much as the Government possibly could have to speak to the Irish community in Britain and all communities in Britain as to the importance of this issue to the Irish people, and since. But I don't think the message from this Chamber, indeed any Chamber, should go out to say anything other than that this is an absolute and complete, unmitigated disaster. It's a complete and unmitigated disaster. Now, when your colleague, Minister Flanagan, was in here, I spoke on the issue of the European project, the importance of European connectivity, that the EU has in general been a force for good, born out of the ashes of a Second World War, and that we had to re-evaluate the European project. This exit of the UK, basically at the behest of the people of Wales and England, for Ireland and for the EU, as Senator McLaughlin quite rightly says, narrow-minded nationalism and the whim of a small group that has taken over the mindset and the mainstream of British politics has led to disaster and has been replicated, unfortunately, across the world. And it was interesting, on the Regional Development Committee, of which I am a member, we had delegations from Blackline in County Cavan. I was interested to hear, actually, Francis Black's connections with the North. My mother is from Blackline, from a border village. My grandfather was an ex-IRA volunteer in the Civil War, did his time, escaped from prison, went on hunger strike, and then spent the rest of his life as a customs officer on the border. Kind of ironic change in career there, really. But and actually, my mother remembers a time when there was a time zone difference between the north and the south of Ireland during the Second World War. But what that delegation told us was that Brexit has already had a devastating impact on that community. People who were envisaging buying homes in Cavan and working in Enniskillen are pointing out left, right and centre of what they had envisaged as their future would be and where they would raise their families. So maybe over the last number of years, because we've come to a collective sort of complacency around peace in Europe and a collective complacency around peace on this island, that we never envisaged that this would happen. There's a High Court case being taken, Minister, and it's been mentioned in this Chamber before, I think possibly by Senator Aodhán, in relation to all of the major, bar one, political parties in the north of Ireland who are questioning the constitutional validity of what the UK government have done, because it would seem it would require an act of Parliament for this to take place, a vote of Parliament, and there hasn't been a vote of Parliament. And I'd be interested to hear what the Minister's view on that is. The government have announced that they're having an all-party forum at the beginning of next month, and that's to be welcomed. I think a particular focus, because in this Chamber we are national politicians, and even though we obviously live in different parts of the country, we have to think of the country as a whole. The border regions are going to be particularly affected by this issue. And I think in our negotiations and discussions of what happens next, we have to be very, very mindful of the impact on the border regions of this country. But the message has to come out from this government, Minister, I would suggest, to all our other European partners, that this is no small deal, and that if any other European member state has, sympathy to what the Brits have done, or has a feeling that maybe there might be some political advantage of going down this road in their own member state, that this is an unmitigated disaster. And we can't say, oh, well, there's kind of advantages here for Ireland and all the rest of it. No. The message from Ireland has to be that this is a right-wing conspiracy that's gone belly up and it's going to cause untold misery, economically and socially, across this continent. And any dilution of that message will be a major mistake for this government to make. I just want to refer to a piece in your own speech, Minister, brought to my attention by Senator Black, because we did have a debate in this House, and a motion that was passed in this House only last week, a motion that was drafted by Senator Higgins. And in your own speech it says, Ireland will continue to make the most effective use of the framework of trade agreements that the EU already has in place, and to support the opening of new markets throughout the EU. These agreements, such as the EU-Canada Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement, CETA, which will be signed by EU ministers in Luxembourg next week, and you go on to discuss other issues. There's a vote in this House last week, Minister, which rejected that. One of the houses of the Oireachtas have rejected that deal. Are you mindful of that? Are you going to, have any response to that? Is that something that you feel you should take into your consideration? When I think I'm not sure if there has been a debate or a vote on it in the lower house, but this House had a robust debate on it, and the majority of people in this House, when voting, rejected the idea of this deal. So, just in conclusion, Minister, I would say this, to place a particular focus on the border regions, a particular focus on the need for us not to be complacent about the peace process in our own country, north and south, to be absolute unwavering advocates for the European project, to speak in very stark and fortified terms about how damaging this whole event has been, to ward off, if you might, other European member states from going down the same road. And certainly, Minister, I think you should respond to the expressed will of this House in relation to that particular trade agreement, which you seem to have in your speech not taken account of. I wish you well in your endeavours, but I don't think any other message from this House or from the mouths of government ministers should in any way dilute the fact that this is an unmitigated political, economic and social disaster.
Thank you, Senator.